The alien queen was going to select a mate, but the one she chose stunned the entire hall. Its towers shone like glass in the pale light of three suns, each sun casting strange shadows that danced across the ground. At the center of this city stood the Hall of Selection, a building so large that it seemed to touch the sky. It was here that the alien queen, ruler of the Valthuran species, would choose her mate, a decision that would shape the future of her entire people. The hall was already filled with candidates. They came from every corner of the galaxy, each hoping to earn the queen's favor. Some were massive beings with thick armor-like scales and claws sharp enough to crush stone. Others had long, lithe bodies, covered in shimmering skin that changed colors with emotion. Some had tentacles, wings, or even multiple heads, each unique and more alien than the last. The air was thick with the hum of power and anticipation, a vibrating energy that made the walls of the hall shimmer faintly. Among the crowd, a group of humans watched from a safe distance. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most species had heard of them, but had never seen one close enough to understand. Cairo, a young human scientist, was among them. He had been brought to Valthura not as a candidate, but as an observer to study the strange biology and social structures of alien civilizations. He was tall, lean, with short, dark hair and steady brown eyes. Unlike the aliens around him, Cairo wore simple clothing, a gray jacket, trousers, and sturdy boots. He blended into the background easily, which suited him just fine. Cairo had been watching the preparations for hours. The hall itself was a marvel of architecture, built from enormous crystals that hummed faintly with energy. The walls curved upward like the inside of a great dome, reflecting light in hundreds of directions. Platforms hovered in midair, carrying alien dignitaries who watched the candidates below. It was a place of awe and intimidation, designed to remind every visitor of the Queen's power. As the candidates lined up, whispers traveled through the crowd. Many of the aliens were eager to show off their strength, intelligence, and other abilities. Stories of past selections were told quietly, each more dramatic than the last. It was said that the Queen's previous mates had been the strongest, the fastest, or the most brilliant of their kind. Some had performed impossible feats of combat, others had solved challenges that no one else could. Each candidate hoped to be the next, though most knew that only the extraordinary were chosen. Cairo had no illusions about his own chances. He was not strong, not fast, and not a warrior. He had never performed feats that would impress a Valthuran. He was a scientist, someone who used logic and curiosity to explore the universe. Still, he was here to learn, and he kept his attention on everything around him. He noticed how the candidates moved, how the aliens in the platforms reacted, and how the Queen herself entered the hall. When the doors opened, the Queen appeared. She was immense, towering over everyone else. Her scales shimmered with iridescent colors that shifted with her mood. Her eyes were large, golden, and intelligent, and they swept across the hall as if she could see everything at once. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the candidates stopped moving, sensing the weight of her presence. Cairo watched silently. He had read about the Queen in reports, but nothing prepared him for her reality. There was an authority in her movement, a confidence that made even the bravest aliens hesitate. She walked slowly down the central platform, her many arms moving gracefully, adorned with rings and bands of precious metals. Each step caused the crystal floor beneath her to glow softly, as if acknowledging her power. The selection ceremony began with a display of abilities. One alien lifted a platform off the ground with nothing but psychic power. Another summoned fire that danced like ribbons around their body. Still another solved a complex puzzle in moments, its pieces floating midair as if by magic. The audience gasped at each demonstration, and some candidates bowed to the display of skill. Cairo observed carefully, noting the differences in technique and approach. His mind raced with questions about how the aliens generated such energy, how their biology supported it, and how the Queen would judge these feats. The Queen watched with interest, her gaze sharp and discerning. She moved among the candidates, occasionally raising an arm to signal a pause or a continuation. Her presence alone seemed to challenge them, pushing them to show more, to strain harder. Cairo could see the tension in the room. Some candidates were confident and proud, while others trembled with fear. The pressure was immense. Despite the grandeur around him, Cairo felt calm. He was not competing, so he could observe without distraction. He watched the subtle movements, the strategy behind each display. Unlike the aliens, who relied on raw power or flashy skill, he relied on quiet thought. He noticed patterns in the energy flows, the way some candidates hesitated before a move, and how the Queen's eyes seemed to react differently to each demonstration. Suddenly, a loud vibration echoed through the hall. The Queen raised her hand, and all motion stopped. The candidates froze mid-action. The Queen's gaze swept the room, and for a moment, Cairo felt as if she had seen right through him. He stood still, breathing evenly, his mind racing. There was something in her look, an intensity, a curiosity that he had not expected. The Queen's voice, deep and resonant, filled the hall. "The strength of the body is not always the measure of worth," she said. "The sharpness of mind, the courage to face the unknown, and the willingness to learn are qualities that matter equally, if not more." The hall was silent. The candidates exchanged nervous glances. Whispers spread quickly, some were questioning, some were incredulous. Humans, especially, were rarely recognized in this way. Cairo felt a strange pull of attention toward him. He did not understand why, but he remained calm, focusing on the Queen's words and the energy in the hall. The Queen continued, her gaze sweeping slowly across the candidates. Her eyes landed on Cairo. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The whispers of the hall grew louder, questioning, doubting. A human, one of the species rarely respected by the Valthorans, was being acknowledged by the Queen. Cairo's heart pounded, but he did not move. He simply observed, curious about what would happen next. Some of the candidates stepped forward, thinking they had caught her attention. They performed feats meant to impress, their movements faster and more elaborate, yet the Queen's gaze did not shift. It remained fixed on Cairo, as if she were testing him in a way different from the others. Cairo realized he was being watched not for what he could do physically, but for who he was. His mind, his composure, his courage under pressure, these were the qualities the Queen seemed to value. He had never imagined that simply observing, thinking carefully, and staying calm could be so important. It was a strange feeling, to be recognized not for feats of power but for quiet strength. The ceremony continued, but Cairo remained at the edge of the hall, not participating in the displays. Yet with every glance from the Queen, he felt a connection forming, subtle but undeniable. The aliens around him grew restless, unsure how to respond to the human who was not showing traditional strength but had captured the Queen's attention. Hours passed. The demonstrations continued, each more elaborate than the last. Cairo observed carefully, noting weaknesses and strengths alike. He made mental calculations about how energy flowed through the hall, how candidates reacted under pressure, and how the Queen's mood shifted. He felt a quiet excitement, the thrill of understanding something that others overlooked. Finally, the Queen stepped back. Her eyes scanned the room, and the silence was absolute. Every candidate and every observer held their breath, waiting for her decision. Cairo felt the weight of the moment but stayed composed, curious rather than afraid. The Queen raised her arms, and the hall quieted even further. "The selection will begin soon," she announced. Her voice echoed through the crystal walls, reverberating like a deep musical note. "Candidates, prepare yourselves. Observers, watch carefully. What is about to happen will change the course of the future." Cairo stood quietly, unsure of what role he would play. He was a human among aliens, an observer among candidates, yet he could feel the eyes of the Queen upon him. There was a strange anticipation in the air, a sense that the ordinary rules of strength and power might not apply this time. As the sun set behind the violet clouds of Valthera, casting long shadows across the hall, the stage was set. The greatest candidates in the galaxy were gathered, the Queen's gaze was fixed, and a single human stood quietly at the edge of it all, unaware that he might soon become the center of attention. It was a moment that would mark the beginning of something extraordinary. The selection ceremony, meant to test strength and brilliance, might just reveal that the qualities of a human, curiosity, courage, and intelligence, could shine even in a hall of the universe's most formidable beings. Cairo took a deep breath, feeling a mix of awe and calm determination. Whatever happened next, he would observe, learn, and act with the quiet strength that humans had carried across the stars. And in that moment, he did not know that the eyes of the alien Queen had already chosen him as someone who could surprise the entire hall. The next morning, the hall of selection was quiet, but the air still hummed with tension. Cairo walked along the edge of the hall, observing the candidates preparing for the Queen's challenges. Their movements were precise, controlled, each one stretching or meditating, as if trying to summon some hidden power. The hall's crystalline walls reflected strange patterns of light, and the platforms above seemed to float without support, carrying spectators who whispered and shifted in excitement. Cairo noticed something unusual. The strongest candidates, the ones with scales as thick as metal or tentacles lined with energy sensors, were not practicing. They were watching him. Their eyes, large and intelligent, measured him in ways that made him uneasy. He had expected the aliens to ignore him completely, but now he realized that the Queen's focus on a human had created tension among them. Some candidates scowled, muttering in alien languages, while others clenched fists or adjusted their stance, as if preparing to challenge him despite his obvious lack of strength. The Queen entered the hall again, her movement calm and deliberate. She floated down the central platform, and as always, the crystal floor beneath her glowed. Her eyes scanned the room, resting briefly on each candidate before returning to Cairo. A faint smile touched her lips, something subtle but unmistakable. The audience noticed the interaction, and whispers spread quickly. Even those who had never respected humans before now looked at Cairo with curiosity, some with doubt, others with disbelief. "Today," the Queen said, her voice echoing like deep crystal, "we begin the tests of worth. Strength and brilliance will be measured, but so will courage, ingenuity, and spirit. Let the first challenge commence." The first candidate stepped forward. One was a giant with 4 arms, each tipped with razor claws. He leaped into the air, summoning fire from his palms, spinning in a display of power and precision. The platform shook slightly under the intensity of the flames. Another candidate floated above the ground, bending gravity to form a floating maze of energy, which they navigated with ease. The hall erupted in gasps and murmurs as each alien displayed abilities beyond imagination. Cairo watched silently, taking notes in his mind. He could not perform these feats, not even close, but he noticed patterns. He saw the smallest delays in timing, the tiny errors that made some displays less efficient. He noted how energy flowed through the platforms, how the Queen's reactions subtly changed depending on the precision of the moves. He understood in a quiet human way what was happening. After the displays, the Queen paused. "You have shown strength, speed, and skill," she said, her golden eyes moving across the candidates. "But now we shall see another quality, creativity, adaptation under pressure." Cairo had not expected to be included in the challenge. Yet, as the Queen's gaze returned to him, he realized that he was no longer just an observer. Something in her eyes suggested that he would be tested as well. The strongest aliens noticed and stiffened. They whispered among themselves, their voices carrying a mixture of anger and disbelief. A human could not possibly compete, they thought. Yet the Queen had chosen to watch him. The first challenge for Cairo was simple in description but difficult in context. He was asked to navigate a complex holographic maze projected above the central platform. The walls shifted constantly, and energy barriers blocked certain paths. While the aliens used telekinesis, gravity manipulation, or sheer speed to move through the maze, Cairo had only his mind and human dexterity. He stepped onto the platform, feeling the subtle vibration beneath his feet. He studied the maze carefully, noticing that the barriers followed predictable patterns. He did not rush. Instead, he waited for the right moment to move, observing how the walls shifted and when the paths opened. His movements were deliberate, precise, and careful. One by one, he avoided energy fields, timed his steps, and reached the center. The Queen's eyes widened slightly, a small but unmistakable sign of approval. The audience was stunned. The alien candidates who had been considered unbeatable looked shocked, some even outraged. They whispered in disbelief, unable to understand how a human, without superhuman strength or alien abilities, had completed a task that many of them had failed. Cairo did not look at them. He focused only on the maze and on the subtle movements that allowed him to succeed. His calm, analytical mind had given him an advantage no brute force could match. Next, the Queen presented a moral challenge. A holographic simulation appeared in the center of the hall, showing a small alien village under attack by predators. The candidates were asked to save as many villagers as possible, but the simulation required strategy, decision-making, and empathy. Some aliens reacted with instinct, charging at the threat and using their powers to destroy it. They saved a few villagers but left many exposed. Cairo approached the simulation differently. He analyzed the predators' behavior, predicted their movements, and directed the villagers to safe positions. He did not fight the predators directly. Instead, he used strategy to ensure everyone survived. The simulation ended with the maximum number of villagers safe. The queen's gaze softened, and for the first time she nodded slightly. A murmur ran through the hall. Aliens who had relied on raw power were beginning to understand that the human possessed a different kind of strength, one that could not be measured in scales, claws, or energy manipulation. They looked at him with suspicion and respect, unsure how to respond. Some clenched fists, others muttered curses in their language, yet the queen's attention never wavered. Then came a test of courage. A large, simulated storm was generated above the platform. Lightning struck and debris whirled through the air. Candidates were asked to retrieve a crystal from the center of the storm, an item that represented wisdom and foresight. Aliens who relied on speed or shields rushed in, only to be thrown back by the unpredictable energy. Some gave up entirely, frustrated by the chaos. Cairo stepped forward with steady resolve. He observed the storm, noting the rhythm of the lightning and the movement of debris. He timed his steps, using small, calculated movements to avoid danger. When a bolt struck too close, he ducked instinctively but continued calmly. Slowly, methodically, he reached the center and retrieved the crystal. He held it high, showing that courage could coexist with careful thought. The queen's voice echoed again, soft but powerful. "Courage is not the absence of fear," she said. "It is the wisdom to act despite it." Her gaze lingered on Cairo, and even the alien elders in the platforms leaned forward, intrigued by his performance. Cairo's calm approach began to shift the atmosphere of the hall. Where once there had been doubt and scorn, curiosity and admiration started to emerge. The strongest aliens, who had relied entirely on physical or psychic prowess, now realized that raw talent was not enough. Adaptability, intelligence, and courage could rival even the most incredible abilities. After the courage test, the queen introduced the final trial of the day, a challenge of teamwork. Candidates were grouped into pairs or small teams and asked to assemble a device that could control a small energy storm projected onto the platform. Some candidates tried to dominate, commanding others or using brute force to manipulate the components. Others failed because they could not communicate effectively with their teammates. Cairo found himself paired with an alien who had 6 arms and a habit of rushing headlong into every task. The alien attempted to force pieces together, often breaking delicate connections. Cairo spoke calmly, pointing out patterns and suggesting methods that relied on understanding rather than strength. The alien hesitated, then followed his instructions. Together they completed the device, stabilizing the storm. The queen's gaze lingered on the pair, and her smile grew faint but noticeable. By the end of the day, Cairo had completed every challenge in a way that was entirely unexpected. He had no alien powers, no immense strength, no flashy displays, yet he had outperformed some of the strongest candidates simply by thinking clearly, acting patiently, and maintaining courage. The hall was silent for a moment, as if trying to comprehend what had happened. Then the whispers began, first quiet, then louder, then almost a hum of astonishment. The strongest candidates could not hide their shock. Some were angry, others were impressed. They exchanged glances, trying to understand how a human could surpass them without extraordinary physical or psychic abilities. Even the queen's advisors, who had doubted his potential, began to nod quietly, recognizing the value of the human's approach. Finally, the queen spoke, her voice filling the hall. "It appears that today we have witnessed more than strength and brilliance. We have witnessed ingenuity, courage, and calm wisdom. The human has shown qualities that are rare even among the most powerful of my people." Cairo bowed his head respectfully, unsure how to respond. He had not expected praise or recognition. He had only acted as he always did, with careful thought and steady resolve. Yet he felt a growing sense of purpose, a realization that perhaps humans could make a difference in ways even the greatest alien beings might not predict. The day ended with the candidates returning to their quarters, some still whispering about the human who had amazed the queen. Cairo remained in the hall a little longer, observing the crystal patterns and the subtle energy flows. He felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense that he had contributed in a meaningful way, even without alien powers. As he prepared to leave, the queen's gaze returned to him, lingering longer than before. There was a spark of interest, something more than mere acknowledgement. Cairo did not understand fully, but he sensed that the true challenges were still ahead, that the path of selection had only just begun, and that his presence in the hall would matter more than anyone had imagined. For the first time, Cairo felt that being human was not a limitation. It was a source of strength that no alien power could replicate. The Hall of Selection, once a place of fear and awe, had become a stage where his quiet courage, intelligence, and careful thinking could shine. And somewhere deep in the crystalline walls of the hall, the alien queen watched, curious and intrigued, wondering what this human could truly offer. The hall was quieter than usual the next morning, but the tension had not diminished. Cairo walked slowly along the crystal corridors, observing the other candidates as they practiced for the queen's next series of tests. Some were pacing nervously, their many arms or tentacles trembling slightly. Others were calm, confident that their raw strength or alien abilities would carry them through. Yet there was a subtle difference now. Many of them glanced at Cairo with unease, as though his quiet presence alone unsettled them. Cairo did not mind. He had learned to focus on what mattered and ignore distractions. His human mind analyzed every movement, every ripple of energy, every shift in the hall's crystalline structure. He noticed the smallest details, how a candidate's shadow moved slightly ahead of them, how the floor crystals pulsed when an alien concentrated its energy, and how the queen's gaze lingered on subtle actions rather than loud displays. These observations gave him an advantage, though he knew nothing about the challenges ahead. The queen entered the hall without warning. Her approach was silent, almost as if she glided above the crystalline floor. The light from her scales shimmered, reflecting in hundreds of directions, making it difficult for anyone to look directly at her. When she stopped in the center of the hall, her golden eyes scanned the candidates. She paused briefly on Cairo, her gaze steady and thoughtful. "Today we test adaptability under unexpected circumstances," she announced. Her voice filled the hall, low and musical, echoing softly against the crystal walls. "Not every challenge is known in advance. The worthy will demonstrate the ability to think quickly, act decisively, and remain calm when the unexpected occurs." The first trial began immediately. Holographic simulations appeared across the hall, each one depicting a scenario designed to test intelligence and decision-making. One simulation showed a city under siege by predators, another a complex puzzle that required manipulating energy flows, and yet another a rapidly changing maze that tested timing and observation. Candidates rushed to their platforms, attempting to display speed and power. Cairo took a different approach. He observed the simulations carefully, noting patterns that others overlooked. He did not rush forward. Instead, he analyzed the sequence of events, anticipated changes, and planned his moves with precision. While others struggled to adapt to unexpected shifts, Cairo moved deliberately, using logic and intuition rather than force. One challenge involved a holographic storm, with lightning bolts striking unpredictably. Many aliens attempted to control the storm with brute energy, but the results were chaotic. Cairo stepped forward and observed the storm's rhythm, noticing that the lightning had a subtle pattern. Timing his movements with care, he retrieved an energy crystal from the center of the storm without a scratch. The queen's eyes glimmered with interest. A more difficult trial followed. Candidates were placed in pairs and given a device to assemble, but the components shifted and changed shape unexpectedly. Some candidates became frustrated, smashing parts together with strength alone, while others froze, unable to respond to the shifting forms. Cairo and his assigned partner, a four-armed alien who preferred to act first and think later, worked carefully. He guided the alien step by step, explaining how to observe the changes and adapt quickly. Together, they completed the device flawlessly, stabilizing the energy storm projected in the simulation. The hall reacted with astonishment. Whispers ran through the audience, growing louder as word spread. The human was performing tasks that challenged even the most skilled aliens. Some muttered angrily, unable to understand how Cairo could succeed without the superhuman abilities they relied on. Others leaned forward in admiration, recognizing the value of calm, strategic thought. Next came the test that no one had expected. The queen's voice rang out again. "Now you will face a challenge that has no clear solution." It will test your perception, your creativity, and your courage. Do not rely on strength or speed. Only your mind and spirit will guide you. Holograms filled the hall, creating a labyrinth that shifted constantly. Paths opened and closed without warning, energy barriers appeared and vanished, and the walls themselves seemed to move. The strongest aliens rushed forward immediately, relying on speed, telekinesis, or psychic energy. Some advanced quickly at first, but soon became trapped, their powers unable to match the labyrinth's unpredictability. Others froze entirely, overwhelmed by the constantly changing environment. Cairo paused at the edge of the labyrinth. He took a deep breath, studying the patterns carefully. He realized that the walls moved in predictable intervals, that the energy barriers followed a repeating cycle, and that certain paths were safer than others at specific moments. He did not act hastily. Instead, he waited, watched, and moved deliberately, timing each step with precision. As he progressed, Cairo encountered a barrier that seemed impossible to bypass. Lightning arced along its surface, and the path ahead appeared blocked entirely. Most candidates would have turned back or attempted to force their way through. Cairo studied the barrier, analyzing its energy patterns. He realized that by moving at a specific angle and using a sequence of small, deliberate steps, he could pass through without touching the lightning. With careful calculation and calm execution, he succeeded. The Queen's gaze followed him closely, her expression unreadable but intense. The audience was silent, watching a human move through a challenge that had defeated many aliens. Some of the strongest candidates gritted their teeth in frustration. One muttered a word of disbelief, shaking its many heads. Cairo ignored them, focused entirely on the labyrinth and the task at hand. After navigating the labyrinth, Cairo faced a new obstacle, a moral decision simulation. Holographic images of alien citizens in peril appeared before him. He could save some immediately but risked leaving others in danger. Most candidates acted instinctively, choosing the ones closest or strongest or attacking the threats directly. Their actions saved a few but left many vulnerable. Cairo paused, thinking carefully. He analyzed the movements of the threats, predicted their behavior, and directed the holographic citizens to safe positions. He did not attempt to attack the threats directly. Instead, he used strategy and foresight to ensure the maximum number of individuals survived. When the simulation ended, nearly everyone was safe. The Queen's eyes softened, and she nodded in approval. The hall reacted with amazement. Aliens whispered among themselves, unable to comprehend that a human, so small, so physically weak, could outperform their species through observation, intelligence, and courage alone. Even the elders, who had witnessed countless selections, leaned forward with interest. Cairo's calm confidence had challenged their expectations in a profound way. Finally, the Queen introduced a test that combined all the previous challenges, a scenario requiring adaptability, courage, teamwork, and intelligence. Candidates were placed in groups and given the task of navigating a rapidly changing environment while retrieving energy cores and protecting vulnerable citizens. Most aliens relied on their powers, attempting to solve problems with force or speed. Some advanced quickly at first, but soon became trapped or made errors that cost them points. Others froze entirely, overwhelmed by the complexity. Cairo's group consisted of two aliens with contrasting skills, one with incredible strength but little patience, and another with psychic abilities but poor judgment under pressure. Cairo remained calm, observing the environment and his teammates. He gave simple, clear instructions, coordinating their actions and timing carefully. Where others relied on raw talent, he relied on analysis, timing, and communication. By the end of the challenge, Cairo's group had retrieved every energy core and ensured the safety of every citizen. The Queen's eyes sparkled with approval, and for the first time, she spoke directly to him. "You have shown qualities that are rare even among the most powerful of my people. Your courage, intelligence, and patience are exceptional." The hall erupted in whispers, murmurs, and exclamations. Many aliens could not believe what they had witnessed. A human, so physically insignificant compared to the rest of the candidates, had excelled in challenges designed to test strength, skill, and power. Cairo's calm, strategic approach had proven that intellect and courage could rival even the most extraordinary alien abilities. As the candidates returned to their quarters, some in frustration and some in awe, Cairo remained in the hall a little longer. He studied the patterns of energy, the subtle vibrations of the floor crystals, and the way the queen observed each action. He felt a quiet satisfaction in his performance, knowing that he had done his best not through power, but through thought, observation, and careful action. The queen's gaze remained on him as she floated toward the center of the hall. "Human," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "your performance today has been exceptional. You have shown that courage, intelligence, and adaptability are as important as strength and skill. You have the qualities that could shape the future of this selection, and perhaps more." Cairo bowed respectfully, unsure how to respond. He had acted as he always did, calmly, thoughtfully, and with care. He had not sought recognition or reward, yet here he was, acknowledged by the ruler of an alien species whose power and influence spanned the galaxy. He realized that being human did not make him weak. It gave him a perspective, a way of thinking that even the most powerful aliens could not easily replicate. The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke again, softer this time, almost as if she were sharing a secret. "Tomorrow, the final trials will begin. Every candidate will face a challenge that tests the core of who they are. Strength, skill, intelligence, courage, and spirit will all be measured. Be ready, human. The outcome may surprise everyone, including yourself." Cairo nodded, feeling a mix of anticipation and calm resolve. He did not know what the final trials would entail, but he understood one thing clearly. His human qualities, his mind, his courage, his patience, were not weaknesses. They were strengths that even the most powerful aliens could not ignore. As he left the hall, the light of Valthera's three suns reflected across the crystalline city, casting long, shifting shadows. Cairo walked slowly, thinking about the challenges ahead. The queen had noticed him, and the other candidates had begun to respect, fear, or admire him. Whatever the next day brought, he was ready to face it with the same calm determination that had carried him through every trial so far. The stage was set for the final trials. The hall, the queen, and the galaxy's strongest candidates awaited the human who had already stunned them all. Cairo did not know what would happen, but he understood that being human, thinking, observing, and acting carefully, might be the key to facing challenges no alien had expected him to overcome. The morning of the final trials arrived quietly, but the hall of selection buzzed with anticipation. The strongest candidates in the galaxy were gathered, their confidence slightly shaken after observing Cairo's surprising performance. Whispers traveled through the hall like ripples across water. Some candidates doubted their chances, others were eager to reclaim their pride. The air was thick with tension, and every eye, alien or human, was on the central platform where the queen would make her final announcement. Cairo walked through the hall calmly, taking in every detail. He could feel the change in the atmosphere. What had been an air of competition had shifted into curiosity, suspicion, and for some, awe. He noticed the candidates whispering, exchanging glances, some glaring at him openly. Yet he ignored them. He had no reason to compete with their arrogance. His focus remained on understanding, analyzing, and preparing for what the queen might ask next. The queen entered the hall, her presence commanding attention without effort. Her scales shimmered in the light of Valthera's three suns, reflecting patterns across the walls and platforms. She stopped in the center, her golden eyes sweeping across the assembled candidates. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the most confident aliens sensed the weight of the moment. "Today," she announced, her voice deep and resonant, "we will conclude the trials. The final test is not of strength alone, nor of intelligence alone. It is a measure of the whole being, courage, wit, patience, adaptability, and spirit. Every candidate will demonstrate their true nature." The first candidates were called forward. One by one, they performed incredible feats. A massive alien lifted a floating platform with his psychic energy. A lithe, multi-limbed being solved an impossible puzzle in seconds, and another candidate navigated a labyrinth of shifting walls with incredible speed. Each display drew gasps from the audience, but the queen's expression remained calm, almost thoughtful. She did not appear easily impressed. When Cairo's turn came, he stepped forward quietly. The hall went silent. Many candidates whispered among themselves, questioning why a human, so physically weak, so seemingly ordinary, was part of the final trial. Some muttered predictions that he would fail, yet the queen's golden eyes remained fixed on him. The challenge was presented, a multi-layered simulation that combined every trial from the past days. Cairo would have to navigate shifting mazes, protect holographic citizens, manipulate energy flows, and solve unpredictable puzzles, all simultaneously. The strongest candidates attempted to tackle the challenge using brute force or flashy abilities, but the complexity soon overwhelmed them. Mistakes piled up, barriers collapsed, and their frustration became evident. Cairo paused. He did not rush forward as many others had done. Instead, he observed. He analyzed the flow of the simulation, studied the patterns in the shifting walls, and predicted the behavior of the threats. His movements were deliberate and precise. When an energy barrier appeared unexpectedly, he timed his steps perfectly to avoid it. When holographic citizens were threatened, he directed them to safety, predicting danger before it occurred. The hall watched in stunned silence. Aliens who had relied on physical power were being outperformed by a human who had no powers at all. Cairo's calm intelligence and courage allowed him to complete the final challenge with efficiency and precision. Every element of the simulation was mastered without panic or error. The Queen's eyes shone with approval, a faint but unmistakable smile touching her lips. After the trial, the Queen raised her hands and the hall fell completely silent. "Every candidate has shown remarkable skill and ability," she said. "Some have displayed strength, others intelligence or agility. But one candidate has demonstrated qualities that transcend the ordinary measures of power." Her golden eyes turned to Cairo. A collective gasp swept through the hall. Many aliens could not believe what they were hearing. Their strongest peers looked shocked, and some glared at Cairo with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Humans were considered insignificant in this galaxy, incapable of matching alien capabilities. Yet here was one human, singled out by the Queen herself. "You," she said, her voice soft but commanding, "have shown courage under pressure, intelligence in unexpected situations, patience in chaos, and the ability to inspire and lead. Your mind and spirit have proven greater than mere physical strength. You have displayed qualities that are rare, even among the most powerful beings in this galaxy." Cairo felt his heart race. The Queen was addressing him directly, praising him for abilities that humans took for granted, thinking clearly, acting calmly, and observing carefully. He bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said quietly. "I only acted as I could, using what I have learned and observed." The Queen stepped closer, her golden eyes never leaving his. "And yet that is enough," she said. "In a world of overwhelming power, it is those who think, who adapt, and who remain true to their principles who shape the future." The hall was silent for several long moments. Then whispers began, spreading quickly from the platforms to the floor. "A human, the Queen has chosen a human," one alien muttered. Another whispered angrily, "How can she select one so weak physically?" Many candidates exchanged shocked glances. Some were visibly angry, while others seemed to reconsider their assumptions about humans entirely. The Queen raised her hand again, and the hall fell silent. "I have made my choice," she said. "Not for what is expected, not for what is easy or conventional. I choose the candidate who has shown that true strength lies not only in the body, but in the mind and the heart." The eyes of the hall turned fully to Cairo. Shock rippled through the crowd. A human, a simple, ordinary human, had been chosen as the Queen's mate. The strongest aliens were frozen in disbelief. They had expected warriors, geniuses, or beings of extraordinary power. Instead, a human stood at the center of their attention, calm and composed, chosen for qualities they often overlooked. Cairo felt a mixture of awe, nervousness, and humility. He had never imagined that a human could be selected in such a way, that his quiet intelligence and courage would be recognized across a galaxy of powerful beings. Yet here he was, the center of attention, and the alien Queen herself had chosen him. The Queen approached him, her presence overwhelming yet graceful. "Do not fear this responsibility," she said softly. "It is not given lightly, but it is a recognition of the value that you bring. Your perspective, your courage, your mind, they are as vital as any physical power. You will walk beside me not because you are the strongest, but because you are the one who has shown what true strength can be." Cairo bowed once again, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. "I accept, Your Majesty," he said. "I will serve with respect and do my best to honor your trust." The Queen extended one of her many arms, placing a ceremonial mark on his shoulder. The gesture symbolized the selection and carried the weight of tradition, a declaration that the chosen mate would share in guiding the future of the species. The hall gasped again, the collective astonishment nearly audible. Many aliens could not comprehend how a human could be chosen, and yet the Queen's decision was final. The reactions were immediate and intense. Some candidates muttered angrily, unable to accept the outcome. Others looked on with newfound respect, realizing that the qualities Cairo had displayed, thoughtfulness, courage, adaptability, were far more powerful than they had assumed. The audience of dignitaries and spectators leaned forward, their whispers mixing with awe, curiosity, and disbelief. The Queen's voice cut through the murmurs. "Let this day be remembered," she said, "not for displays of raw power, but for the recognition that courage, intelligence, and the human spirit are forces that can shape worlds. Let all who witness this understand that true worth is measured not by strength alone, but by wisdom, adaptability, and heart." Cairo stood quietly, aware of every eye upon him. He had not sought this recognition, yet he felt a deep sense of responsibility. Being chosen by the Queen was not only an honor, it was a chance to prove that humanity, even in a galaxy of incomprehensible power, could contribute in meaningful ways. The Queen turned to the other candidates, her voice firm and resolute. "Do not see this as a defeat. See it as a lesson. The future is shaped by many kinds of strength. Observe, learn, and grow. Even the smallest, most ordinary among you can surprise the universe if you use your mind, your courage, and your heart." The hall was quiet again, but the silence was different now. Where once there had been tension and competition, now there was a sense of reflection and consideration. Many aliens began to understand that the Queen's choice, though shocking, was deliberate and wise. It challenged assumptions, broke expectations, and showed the galaxy that value is not always obvious. Cairo felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had acted as he always did, carefully, thoughtfully, and with courage, and yet the consequences were extraordinary. The Queen had recognized him not for what he looked like or how strong he appeared, but for the qualities that defined him as a human: intelligence, adaptability, courage, and moral clarity. As the ceremony concluded, the Queen raised her arms, signaling the end of the trials. The hall erupted in a mixture of applause, gasps, and whispers. Cairo bowed one final time, then stepped back, feeling the weight of the moment. He knew that being chosen was only the beginning. The real challenge would come in proving himself worthy of the trust placed in him, guiding a species that spanned the stars, and showing that humanity could truly stand among the greatest beings of the galaxy. The hall slowly emptied, leaving Cairo and the Queen alone for a brief moment. Her golden eyes studied him with quiet curiosity and approval. "The galaxy will watch closely," she said softly, "but I trust that you will rise to meet it. Together we will show that strength is not measured solely by the body or the powers one possesses, but by the mind, the spirit, and the courage to act rightly." Cairo nodded. "I will do my best," he said, "for you and for the future." The Queen's gaze softened, a hint of a smile appearing as she looked at him. "That is all that is required," she said. "The rest will follow in time." As they left the hall together, the whispers and astonished glances of the alien audience followed them. Cairo realized that the story of this day, the day a human had stunned the Hall of Selection, would be told across the galaxy for generations. And for the first time, he truly understood the power of the qualities that made humans unique: intelligence, courage, adaptability, and heart. He had been chosen not because he was the strongest, but because he was human. And in that truth lay the beginning of a new chapter, not only for him, but for all who would witness the unexpected strength of humanity. The city of Valthera was quiet that morning, but the air shimmered with anticipation. News of the Queen's unprecedented choice had spread quickly through the halls, the streets, and even to distant outposts. A human had been chosen as her mate, a being considered weak by many, yet now celebrated, questioned, and studied across the galaxy. Cairo walked beside the Queen through the crystalline corridors, absorbing the magnitude of what had happened. His heart still pounded with a mix of pride, humility, and nervous excitement. He had expected admiration, perhaps curiosity, but the reality was far beyond what he imagined. Aliens from distant systems watched with careful interest, their conversations filled with speculation about humans and the surprising qualities that had earned him the Queen's favor. Even the strongest candidates who had once scorned him now looked at him with a mixture of respect and wariness. The hallways were alive with energy, a hum of change sweeping through the city, as if the very crystals themselves sensed the shift in perception. The queen walked beside him, her multiple arms moving gracefully. Her scales reflected the sunlight in patterns that made her look ethereal, almost untouchable. Yet when she looked at Cairo, there was warmth and curiosity in her golden eyes. "Do not let the whispers of others distract you," she said softly. "What you have accomplished is rare, even unimaginable to most of my people, but it is not the end, it is only the beginning." Cairo nodded, absorbing her words. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will do my best to live up to your trust." She inclined her head slightly, a gesture of approval. "Your best is more than enough. It is precisely the qualities of thought, courage, and observation that make humans remarkable. You have proven that strength is not only measured by muscle or psychic power, but by clarity of mind, empathy, and adaptability. And these qualities, your qualities, will now guide our people into a new era." The queen led him to the central hall, where dignitaries and advisors had gathered. Aliens of every kind watched closely, some with curiosity, others with lingering skepticism. The queen raised her hands, and the room fell silent. "Today," she said, her voice calm but powerful, "marks a new chapter for our species and for the galaxy. We have witnessed courage, intelligence, and determination that surpasses conventional expectations. We have been reminded that even the smallest or most unlikely among us can influence the course of history." Cairo felt a strange mix of awe and responsibility. He was a human among giants, creatures of unimaginable power, and yet the Queen's trust placed him on equal footing with the most formidable beings in the galaxy. He took a deep breath, realizing that his life had changed forever. The Queen continued, addressing the audience. "The future requires unity, not dominance. Strength must be tempered by wisdom, courage by judgment, and power by humility. Humanity has shown that even without extraordinary alien abilities, insight, empathy, and calm resolve can lead to extraordinary outcomes. This is a lesson for us all." A murmur swept through the hall. Many aliens were beginning to reconsider their prejudices against humans. Some had doubted the species entirely, believing them weak, fragile, and insignificant. Yet now they saw the humans standing calmly beside the queen, chosen for qualities that no strength or weapon could replicate. Cairo's quiet intelligence, courage, and moral clarity had redefined the standard of worth in the galaxy. After the formal address, the Queen and Cairo began to meet with the Council of Elders. They discussed strategies for alliances, defense, and the management of resources across their star systems. Cairo observed carefully, asking questions, suggesting ideas, and offering insights that combined human creativity with the Queen's experience. The Elders were skeptical at first, but as Cairo spoke, their expressions changed. They began to see that the humans' approach, thoughtful and logical, offered solutions they had never considered. One council member, a large alien with 6 arms and metallic scales, leaned forward. "Your ideas are unusual," he said cautiously. "Humans are unpredictable." "How can we trust these methods?" Cairo smiled faintly. "Unpredictable only means seeing things differently. My approach is based on observation and careful thought. It is not about raw power, but about understanding patterns and using them wisely. That is how we can succeed together." The elder considered this, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your words. The galaxy may need more than strength alone." The day continued with meetings, discussions, and planning. Cairo found himself deeply engaged, his human perspective offering unique insights. He suggested strategies for diplomacy, logistics, and problem-solving that even the Queen found impressive. Together, they began to envision a galaxy where humans and Valthorans worked together, not as superior and subordinate, but as partners. By mid-afternoon, the Queen led Cairo to a balcony overlooking the city. The 3 suns reflected off the crystal towers, creating dazzling patterns of light. Below, the citizens of Valthora moved through the streets, unaware of the significance of the day, yet part of a world that was quietly changing. "You have done more than survive the trials," the Queen said softly. "You have inspired my people, challenged their assumptions, and shown that humanity has a place among the greatest beings in the galaxy. That is a rare and valuable gift." Cairo looked down at the city, feeling a deep sense of connection. He realized that being human, with all the limitations and strengths of his species, could still make a profound difference. The qualities that others overlooked, thoughtfulness, empathy, courage, and observation, had proven themselves powerful enough to shape the destiny of an entire civilization. "I never imagined it would come to this," he said honestly. "I only acted as I thought best, using what humans do naturally. It is astonishing to see it have such an effect." The queen smiled, a soft, approving gesture. "And that is why you were chosen. It is not strength alone that builds the future, but understanding, courage, and the willingness to act rightly. You have these in abundance." As the day turned to evening, Cairo and the queen walked through the city together. Citizens of Valthera, both ordinary and extraordinary, looked up as they passed. Some whispered in awe, others in disbelief, and a few nodded in respect. The presence of a human walking openly beside the queen challenged every assumption about what was possible, inspiring curiosity and reconsideration among the people. Cairo realized that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not immediately accept the idea that a human could stand beside one of its most powerful rulers. There would be doubts, challenges, and resistance. Yet he felt ready to face them, confident in the value of human qualities that could transcend alien expectations. The queen led him to a ceremonial chamber, a space designed for reflection, planning, and discussion. Crystals floated mid-air, casting soft, colored lights across the walls. The atmosphere was calm, yet charged with possibility. The queen turned to him. "Tomorrow," she said, "we begin the work of guiding our people together. You will see that your perspective, your creativity, and your courage are needed not only for survival but for leadership. You have already earned the respect of many, but now you must use your human qualities to inspire, to teach, and to build." Cairo nodded. "I will do my best. I hope to show that humanity is not just another species, but a partner that can bring something valuable to the galaxy." The queen inclined her head. "You already have. Your presence here, your actions, and your choices have already begun to shift the perception of your species. That is a remarkable achievement for one human. Together, we can achieve more than any of us imagined." The night fell over Valthera, and the city glowed softly under the three suns, lingering light. Cairo lay awake in his quarters, reflecting on the events of the past days. He had been an ordinary human, observing an extraordinary alien civilization. Yet through thought, courage, and patience, he had impressed the queen and earned a place beside her. He realized that human ingenuity and spirit were perhaps the most powerful tools in the universe when applied with wisdom and heart. The next morning, Cairo joined the queen in the Hall of Council, where they began planning alliances and strategies that could benefit both humans and Valtherans. Cairo offered suggestions for trade, research, and exploration, blending human creativity with Valtheran experience. The council listened, skeptical at first, but gradually their expressions changed as they realized the value of his perspective. By the end of the day, the groundwork for a new alliance had been laid. Humans would be recognized as valuable partners in the galaxy, not for physical power, but for their unique abilities to think, adapt, and act wisely. Cairo had not only survived the trials, but had changed the way an entire species viewed humanity. The queen looked at him with a quiet smile. "You have shown that humans can be more than observers in this galaxy. You can lead, inspire, and guide. That is a rare and powerful gift." Cairo felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had never sought recognition, yet through courage, intelligence, and moral clarity, he had earned a place among the most powerful beings in the galaxy. More importantly, he had shown that humanity had a role to play, not just as learners or observers, but as contributors to the future of an entire civilization. As the sun set, casting golden light across the crystalline towers, Cairo looked out over the city and realized that this was only the beginning. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and obstacles, yet it was filled with opportunity. And with courage, intelligence, and heart, humanity could rise to meet it, surprising even the greatest beings in the galaxy. For the first time, Cairo truly understood that being human was not a limitation, it was a strength. And together with the alien queen, he would show the universe the power of thought, courage, and spirit. The Hall of Selection had been stunned once, and now the galaxy would witness what humans could achieve when given a chance.